Our topic today is Finding Success, Careers in Rotorcraft Maintenance, the second edition. We did one last July. We believe it was well received, and so we thought it was time to do another one. We have a handful of great speakers today. We're hoping that all of them will be able to join us. First one is Jim Viola, our president and CEO. He is definitely here. We are hoping a couple of the people from Columbia will be able to join us. We do have one person. Jessica Calzada is not with us at the moment, but hoping to join. She is the Senior Director of Human Resources. Bob Buchanan is also temporarily away. He is the Senior Director of Maintenance Operations. I believe some of the email messages that went out had his incorrect title as Fleet Manager. That is an old title for Bob. We do have Matt Nash, who is Director of Maintenance, and he is going to be happy to answer all the questions he can and talk about the company. From Flight Trails, excuse me, it says Rotorcraft Industry Professional. He's more than that. He is the owner of Flight Trails, Rick Cobbold. We have Kathy Elsesser, who is the Director of Human Resources at MD Helicopters. And we have Ted Hall, who is the Director of Manufacturing Operations at MD Helicopters. Before we get started, I need to reiterate this. I know this was in the registration information. There are no guarantees of jobs by watching this webinar today. We are trying to give you advice to help get your resume to the top of the stack, but it's the work you're going to have to do to make sure that you have the skills and training these companies need. If they tell you to do X, Y, and Z and you do X, Y, and Z, that's still no guarantee that you will get a position with any of these companies. We're just trying to provide advice. Please keep that in mind. This is an interactive program. We do encourage you to ask questions. That's partly why we're trying to set this up today, is so that you can actually find out things that you want to know. To ask a question, there is a question module in the control panel on the side of your computer screen. Open that up, type your question in. We will receive it, and we will try to answer as many of the questions as we have time for at the end of the webinar. This webinar is also being recorded. If you miss something, or if you want to share it with somebody, or if you want to just watch it later on, we will have the link on our website and on our YouTube channel probably on Monday. That's the way things seem to have gone lately with getting the renderings taken care of and getting them posted to the website. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I do invite Jim Viola, our president and CEO, to come on and say a few words.
Thanks, Dan. It's hard to believe it's been over a year since last time we had this on a Thursday, but it was about a year ago when our industry was faced a shortage of pilots and also in maintenance personnel. You know, that shortage didn't go away with the pandemic. It still does exist, and so it's exciting to know that so many of you are choosing to start a career in aviation maintenance, and you're here today. You picked actually a pretty good time because there's plenty of opportunities as we roll out of this pandemic to start a new job or to expand your career. Just imagine how easy it would be to apply for a job if you knew exactly what the companies needed. And so today, it's your chance to find out these details that might not be included in a job posting, as an example. One thing about aviation maintenance career is that you have many options of where you can work. You're probably at a point in your career now where you still want to explore the world. You can do that, or if you prefer to stay exactly where you're living, I'm sure you can find some place around there. So would you like to work in a big operation, or would you like to work more of a team style? You know, do you like to work in the field? Do you like to work in a hangar? Do you like to work at a specialty shop? I mean, these are all things that I'm sure have been in your mind and something to keep in mind. So as you're looking for a place that's a good fit for you, the companies that are representing today are also looking to see if you're a good fit for them. Do you have the skills they need? Are you a team player? Does your culture fit with their culture? So today's webinar is set up to introduce you to what companies are looking for, examples of that in maintenance personnel. And each of today's presenters, pretty amazing backgrounds, come from companies that have interesting appeal, all a bit different. They also represent other similar companies from around the world. So while we brought in these companies today, don't be afraid to reach out to the other companies that you might want to apply that aren't here and ask questions before you apply. follow their guidance. As Dan was saying, you know, if they say do XYZ, do XYZ. Not a guarantee, but if you don't do XYZ and you do A, B, C, D, pretty much that's not going to help. So follow their guidance, and it just might land your resume on the top of that stack. So I'm sure you're ready to hear about how to get your dream job. So Dan, back to you.
Okay, Jim, thank you. I do appreciate that. Let's go ahead and get started right away. Let's start with Kathy and Ted from MD Helicopters. Kathy, Ted, welcome to HAI at Work, our webinar.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Looks
Dan.
like you are
Thank
both.
you very much for having us.
Oh, absolutely. It looks like you are both social distanced and practicing good health practices right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I suppose this almost goes without saying. I think most people know who MD Helicopters is, but why don't you tell me a little bit about the company? What you do, where you work, the different places, the description of your operations, things like that.
Well, I'm going to let Ted start.
All right, so we're located in Mesa, Arizona, is where our primary location is for our production activities. We do have sales centers all over the world, as you know, because years ago this was used helicopters back in the 60s and 70s, and then it kind of got absorbed up by McDonnell Douglas for a while, and then Boeing elected not to want to keep commercial helicopters in their portfolio, and it went off to become MD Helicopters. I've had the opportunity to work for all three of those. I've been with Hughes, I've been with McDonnell Douglas and Boeing, and now with MD. So I've seen all the transitions of this helicopter and the differences and the militarization and the commercialization of it. So
and Ted's right. We make both commercial and military helicopters. We support those helicopters. We will repair those helicopters. We support them and service them both with parts and people around the world.
Yep.
We have a large CLS contract in Afghanistan. We have a CLS contract with Kenya, and we continue to build helicopters that are deployed around the world. So we have opportunities in different locations, but our main headquarters is here in our production facilities, our repair facilities, our Part 145 repair station are all here in Mesa, Arizona.
That's okay. That's fantastic. That's a lot broader than I would have imagined. And I think that goes to one of the great reasons about having a manufacturer on a webinar like this is my expectation is that not everybody thinks about a manufacturer as a destination for an A&P mechanic. And so what kind of roles do you have for aviation maintenance personnel in all of your facilities?
well, we have, like Kathy mentioned, we have a 145 repair station, right, where we do just this building we're sitting in right now does a lot of the main rotor transmissions, the hubs, tailrotor gearboxes, clutches, all that kind of stuff. Also in this facility we're sitting in today, we build things that support the production line. Also, we have another large facility where we bring in aircraft for 145 services and 135 services. So we have A&Ps out there. I have A&Ps along our production line. So we utilize them throughout our entire process.
And then if they want to go on a career as a field service rep out in the field, we have field service reps who support our customers. Well, we have customer support. A lot of the people who are in those roles came up through the ranks. They were promoted up through our organization. So it's not come in and just be an A&P mechanic. You know,
Right.
you can move as long as you want to, and you have the desire, you can advance your career through MD. We have people who have worked their way up, have been here for 20 years and have worked their way up from mechanic to field service to customer support to one of our sales leaders was an A&P mechanic here in the shop. So we have a good career path internal for mechanics, and we have a fair amount of them.
Sure do.
Well, you both talked about the A&P mechanics. Is there roles for people who do not yet have their A&P license who want to start with MD in
Yeah.
aircraft maintenance?
Yes, they can come in, go on to our production assembly line. Depending on they want to learn structures, they want to learn mechanical, they want to get into avionics. We could start them out. We would prefer to, we're in school to get to be at A&P, but we do bring them in while they're in school and help them through that process.
The other place we recruit from without having an A&P would be straight out of the military.
Right.
So someone who's been a technician in the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, you name it, any of the branches of service, and who are going to get their A&P, we will look at hiring them before, as long as they're going to A&P school. And sometimes they don't even have to, if they have a long career in the military, we won't require that A&P.
And Kathy, I think you alluded to this a second ago. It sounds, is there room for people to move laterally? So say they start out in the manufacturing hangar, but they want to move into avionics. What process is available for something like that?
Well, actually, Ted knows more about that.
So we cross-train, on the assembly line. We have some people that have expressed interest in learning the avionics side, especially as we went into glass cockpit now, right? All touch screen, digital, no longer analog, right? They've gotten extremely interested in that, and they're past the time they want to turn wrenches and change oil, so they want to get into that. So we pick those ones that seem to excel in what they're doing, that have passed on their information to the people they train, and we bump them over into avionics and let them start learning from the best. So.
Okay, what type of qualifications are you looking for somebody who just is entry level? They're just coming in the door. What kind of an education background, training background, a personality background are you looking for with an employee?
Well, if it's someone who's going to be a mechanic, we want them to at least an entry level, haven't had a job in as an aircraft mechanic before. We want them to be going to school and getting to get their A&P. That's what we really want for starting out. And so, Ted, can you take the next part of the question?
Okay.
What kind of people are we looking for?
So we like, one of the things that I promote, right, because I'm the director of ops, is teamwork, right? Teamwork's number one. And we're not a large organization, so we're like a family, like I heard a couple other people say. We do a lot of things to promote people's interest in other things outside of work also, right? We know, family first, right? They always have family issues, and especially with the pandemic we're going through now, we try to support our team as much as we can with things that are going on within their families, right? Because they're all, dealing with that, and making it accessible for their families to get to them if they need them. But teamwork is, probably the number one thing that I make sure that I see when I'm talking or interviewing or reviewing a resume, that I see they've been in some kind of a team process before. But it's we'll train, and they'll fit, right? They'll start to see it's a family. It's a nice organization to be in. So
the other thing we look for, Dan, is we look for people who not only want team, but who want to learn, want to do other things. We don't want someone to come in and just be an entry-level mechanic. We want them to come in advance, because that's what keeps them, right? Keeps them engaged in their knowledge and experience, getting better knowledge and experience. But we want them to go on to do other things. So they could become a crew chief or try to move into avionics, or there's all different paths for them to go to. So we want someone who shows an aptitude for learning.
For sure.
That sounds fantastic. And Ted, you might be an example of this. Do you tend to promote from within, or do you look for external candidates to fill roles, or how do you handle promotion there at MD?
So we promote from within quite a bit. 3 of my 4 direct managers that report to me started out on the floor, either in structures or as a mechanic, and have worked their way through the ranks into a lead position, lead through many cells, right, through many teams, right, because we have several teams as we flow down the line. As they progress through those leads, then we'll post a management position internally, give them that opportunity. If we don't find a candidate internally, then, we go externally like everybody, but we try to promote from within always first.
Yep, we do.
And there's a lot of I'm an example. I was a quality engineer, so.
There's an awful lot of opportunity for advancement within, especially for someone who's an A&P mechanic. As I said before, field service, customer support, potentially sales, and then within the manufacturing organization, moving up into supervisor and manager roles.
One of the sales guys we have currently now did work out on our floor years ago in a structural mechanic role. So,
Kathy, something you mentioned, and this is probably my last question before we move on to the next, and we'll get back to you guys a little later. But you had mentioned, willingness to learn. What kind of training programs does MD offer internally?
Well, we do it. We train our mechanics when they first come in. Everybody goes through. All mechanics go through training,
right.
And then from there, we'll put them through our maintenance training as slots open up, so that they understand maintaining our aircraft. And we'll put them through other courses within our own training. We have a whole training organization that trains customers. Well, we'll put them through those maintenance training programs when there's slots available. So there is training for the mechanics that way. And then there's OJT training, as I said, on-the-job training and potentially cross-training with avionics or other parts of the structures if you want to become a mechanic, but also have a structural background. We'll cross-train you on that.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, I invite you to go ahead and turn your camera off. I'd like to have Rick Cobbold come on and join us for now, and then we'll see you folks in just a little while.
All right,
Rick,
thank you.
Appreciate your joining us this afternoon as well. Can you tell me a little bit about your company? Now, you are the president of Flight Trails. What led you to the company, and please tell me about the company.
Flight Trails is primarily just a maintenance facility. We primarily helicopters. We do some fixed wings, but primarily helicopters. And annuals, repairs, overhauls. We do heavy maintenance, structural, sheet metal. Been doing it for about 15 years. Before that, they were a completion center for MD. They did the unique stuff, the optional equipment. A green aircraft we produced by MD, they'd bring it over and add on their extra option items. But the most of the work we do now is in maintenance and, again, heavy maintenance and structural repairs, avionics, and so forth.
Okay, so now you're not a big shop. What kind of roles do you have for aviation maintenance personnel?
Yeah, we're about 15 people. Probably about 3 in administration. The rest are on the floor doing various jobs. And in a smaller company, what you'll find is everybody has to be cross-trained. Everybody has to be able to do things maybe outside their norm, maybe outside their comfort level, but they learn from that. So as Ted just talked about, teamwork is important because they all have to work together, and they all have to figure out how to manage the job, because you'll get waves of different types of activities. Maybe today is all avionics, maybe tomorrow's all structural. So we'll shift people around so that they can handle that type of work. And they do pretty well at it. They enjoy it because it's different.
Yeah, I would think versatility, or where you have a changing workflow, would beat an assembly. It has to be a little bit more fun. Do you hire people without an A&P license? Do you have a training program? How does your system work there at Flight Trails?
We don't have a training program. Yes, we do hire. We've hired a lot of non-A&Ps, and we've helped them through. Usually it's about a 2-year internal where we train them. They log their train time. Once they get to the point where they've done enough, both in avionics and sheet metal, in machining and repairs and regular maintenance, they log all that. They submit it to the FAA. We've probably had about 3 people now that have gone through the test program to get their A&P just from experience. So we do all on-the-job training.
And when we had talked earlier, you talked about an apprenticeship program, I believe. Is that the correct term?
It is. We do a couple programs. One is we work with a local technology company here called EVIT. EVIT is a high school training program where they do aviation and they do some other stuff, but primarily aviation. We'll take a student from EVIT and bring them on board. They'll work here for 6 months and usually as a senior. And when they're done with that, then they can decide if they want to maintain that. We have offered jobs to some of the people, and most want to be pilots, unfortunately. So they're all like, thank you very much. We're going to go fly somewhere and go from there.
Well, what are your thoughts on somebody who wants to become a pilot having a maintenance background or at least some training?
I think it's good if you can do both. Obviously, the more skills you have, the better off you're going to be. But maintenance is important. It's critical, obviously, and we encourage people. You can be a pilot, that's great, but learn how to take care of an aircraft as well. It's going to benefit you in the future. And the more you can learn as far as not just turning a wrench or torquing it's avionics, it's structural and machining. And I will tell you what we see and we find difficult to fill is the sheet metal and the machining side. We're seeing less and less people learn machining and fewer people taking up sheet metal. So those are big areas that A&P schools touch on. They do get a little, they'll show you how to shoot a rivet and how to buck and, pull a rivet out, but they really don't go into the detail of it. And that's on-the-job training. If you can get that, that's very valuable.
Are there schools that offer training like that? I had not considered something like that.
The A&P schools like EVIT, and we also have another A&P school, Chandler Gilbert, and we've talked down there before. They do basic sheet metal. They do enough to show you what a rivet gun is, what a rivet is, how to pull a rivet, how to shoot a rivet, how to buck a rivet, and then they move on. But they don't show you the art of forming the metal, taking the metal to the point where you can get it to install it. And those guys are artists that can do that. And it's a very valuable tool. All aircraft, fixed wing, rotorcraft, they all require sheet metal work at some point in their life. And it's an important item that is a hard area to fill.
I hope the people who are viewing this webinar paid attention to that. We're not going to give a test, but it sounds like there was some great advice just given.
And I said machining, the other one. They're very hard to find machinists. People that can turn tools and turn metal down to a part that'll fit. Machining is also something they don't teach that at schools. Very few schools have lathes that they put people on to teach them how to take that part or take that piece of metal, that hunk of metal, down to a part that you can use.
That certainly sounds like a skill that might help take a person up to the top of the stack of resumes, given that somebody else may not have that same experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Again, that sounds like great career advice I just heard. What are the general working conditions in a shop like yours? Are you hangared? Are you in individual shops? Is there just like an open floor plan? What kind of experience would a mechanic work have there?
Yeah, in Arizona we're hangared because it gets pretty hot here in the summer. Even in the hangar, it still gets pretty hot. But yeah, we're all hangared. Everything's done inside. Everything's controlled. It's a repair station, so everything has to be technically done inside besides flight test and flight operations. Pretty much everybody has their own tools. They work together on the floor. Again, some guys have unique tools that can do certain jobs that they'll share with other guys when they need to do that type of work. But everybody pretty much has their own tools, work together, work inside as much as they can. And it's one large hangar with everything inside the hangar.
Okay. Now with 15 people, do you have a turnover rate, or do you tend to promote from within as well, or how does that work for you?
Turnover is pretty low. Most of the guys have been here for quite a while. Promotion at a smaller company, you really don't see that. We do have an inspector, a director of maintenance, and a shop floor supervisor or a floor supervisor. So, but they just kind of coordinate the work. Everybody has, you have a sheet metal guy that's very good sheet metal, an avionics guy that's very good avionics, flight control guy is very good. So they all have their expertise, and they are the person to go to when you need that. And again, they cross when something else needs to be done. There's a bunch of sheet metal to go help with that. But as far as titles and promotion in a small company, It's pretty much non-existent. It's personal satisfaction of the work you do.
What qualifications are you generally looking for when you look through a stack of resumes? Or is there anything that helps draw somebody else up to the top of the stack?
Well, like I just said, if we see sheet metal on that resume, A&P, sheet metal, experience, types of aircraft they've worked on, what they've done, field work, we like field work because usually in the field, somebody's challenged to do everything. So they get a broad scope of what it takes to take care of an aircraft. And they have a lot of experience because they see things that break out there that they have to figure out how to solve. So field experience is very valuable. Again, sheet metal, the more they have, the better off that their chances are of getting hired.
Is it safe to say that you prefer somebody with a little bit more experience than, say, somebody coming fresh out of an A&P school?
Not necessarily. Depends on, we like a mix. So we want somebody that's going to be able to, work the smaller stuff, and guys that are going to be able to work the more experienced stuff. So the guys that more experience can help the guys at the lower level. We probably have 2 people right here, I'd say right now, that are entry level. One just started a month ago, no A&P, and we actually have him on a program where he is tracking everything he does. He keeps a record of everything he does, every screw, every nut, everything he does. So when he applies for his A&P, and he doesn't have to go to school, he'll just go straight to the test program, submit his with our endorsement, submit his application with his resume, and take that test. If he passes the test, he's got his A&P. So we like to have, low level and a high level, and roughly that's what we have right now.
It sounds like just an amazing experience for that person. When I was doing a little bit of research, Rick, I noticed that there was nothing on your website about career openings. How would somebody want to submit something to you? How would they submit something to you if they were interested in working for you down the road?
Yeah, we've never advertised for jobs. Usually we'll get resumes, emails, and we'll tell them right now we're not looking. If it just so happens that you submit it at the time we're looking, we'll call you up and bring you in. There is a pretty good population of people out here in the Arizona area that have experience with Rotorcraft, so we really don't have to go out and look too hard. A lot of times word of mouth, we'll say we're looking for somebody. Next thing we know, somebody's calling up saying, hey, I can fill that job, and we'll interview them, see how that works out. But we've never advertised. It's always just emails or word of mouth.
Okay, Rick, well, I appreciate that. I will let you turn your camera off now. I'm going to bring up Matt Nash from Columbia Helicopters, but we will certainly look forward to the question and answer period with you here at the end of the webinar.
Okay,
Thank you so much for now. And Matt Nash, go ahead and bring your camera up. And you're still muted there, Matt.
Of course.
There we go.
Right. There's always one in the crowd.
No worries. Hey, let's go ahead and get started. Tell me a little bit about what Columbia Helicopters does.
All right. Well, first of all, Dan, thank you. Thank you to HAI for having this webinar and all the great stuff you folks do for the helicopter industry. But getting right to it, anybody that knows anything about heavy lift commercial helicopters probably has seen a Columbia Helicopters somewhere on the web, the movies, in person, or whatnot. Our company motto today is basically dedicated people, inspired solutions. Columbia Helicopters is the team that operates one of the heaviest helicopters in the world, takes pride in maintaining customers and our own aircraft with over 350 mechanics and technicians offering tip to tail support at our MRO facility and in the field. So that's the company line, but we've been around for a very long time, I believe 65 years now. We've been in the tandem rotor business for just over 50 years. Some of these same aircraft have been involved in famine relief, firefighting, logging, 135 operations in the oil field, oil exploration, 135 operations in Afghanistan. So we love our tandem rotor helicopters. We love what we do, and that's where the magic happens.
Okay, well, you mentioned over 350 maintenance personnel. What are the roles you have for aviation maintenance personnel?
Well, as you know, my partners kind of bailed on me for some other reason, but my area of the organization is for the field maintainers on our operating aircraft. With that, we have about 90% of them are FAA certified. The other 5% are either in a trainee role or are foreign licensed. We have some Transport Canada certified folks and CASA P&G certified maintainers. But of the 95%, that's about 190 people that I have out there that are FAA certified. About 100 of them are in Afghanistan on a rotation schedule. The remaining are between Australia, PNG, and Chile or domestic. So these are the teams that follow the aircraft around, so to speak, where the rubber meets the road. Put the aircraft to bed at night with inspections, ADs, component changes, whatnot. Launch it in the morning, take care of all the mission support stuff during the day. So again, that's about 190 some people right there. The remaining folks are heavily engaged in our MRO and back shops, and there's been a huge emphasis on MRO growth in our organization. Lots of customer work for like tandem rotor components, rotor heads, engine overhauls, combining transmission, overhauls, lots of back shop work for customer platforms. We have an awesome facility, as you know, engine run stands, transmission test stands, tear downs, assemblies, our own engineering department. It's pretty amazing what they can do back there.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar. You do have a very complete MRO facility, even down to a non-destructive testing lab and fiberglass shops, things that may not be in every shop. What are you looking for always for A&P mechanics when you're hiring for the shop or the field?
No. Generally for the field, we almost always prefer certified mechanics. There's a very, very narrow exception, and much like MD Helicopters stated, that's generally reserved for somebody that perhaps comes with military experience or comes with the 8610-2 in hand saying, I can get this certificate within 6 months and I'm a certified mechanic. But again, that's a very, very small exception. And for the repair station, since an A&P is not required under a 145 certificate, they are looking for people with experience generally, but not necessarily an A&P. Okay, so if you have assembly experience at MD Helicopters or overhaul experience at another aircraft component shop or something like that, that's an attractive experience.
Okay, let's talk about working conditions. I mean, you talk about the people who work in the field. Are they working out in the weather? Are they working in hangars? Are they what type of conditions? And how big of teams are they that are working on the aircraft out in the field?
Okay, so that's a great thing about helicopters is they're in the field, and when we say in the field, we literally mean in the field. In Alaska, the Arctic Circle, on a fire base in Chile, jungles of Papua New Guinea. A hangar is an absolute luxury. I think when I was a field guy, I did probably about a 7-year stretch where I never worked undercover. Okay, so just to give you an idea, these aircraft, we can change rotor heads, engines, transmissions, sheet metal, heavy structures work. All of that is done outside in the elements at night, in the snow, in the heat. It's a good time. It really is. The team size for our commercial 234s, they're a bit bigger because of the complexity of that machine. That's just so you're always going to have about a minimum of 5 folks on site. The 107s, you'll have 3 to 4 on site. Now, of course, with a rotation schedule, the faces change every 28 days or 42 days, depending on the schedule. There are a few places where we had hangars and concrete pads to land on, but that's not something we count on. You know that.
Okay, what about the shops? What about what are the working conditions in your MRO facility?
Yes, very organized, very efficient down to the minute. More time you can keep a technician, focused on the task, whether it's that gearbox or They work in cells. I'm getting a little bit of an audio feedback, Dan. Is that me or you?
I heard it, but it's fine. I think you're okay, Matt. Go ahead.
Okay, so they work in cells. It's very efficient. Parts are very nearby. There's not a lot of wandering around trying to find the next O-ring or the next cotter pin. It's about kind of production. So, but other than that, you know, it's an indoor, it's light, it's heated. They have all the tools they need. They can do some amazing stuff.
Do you tend to promote from within as well, or do you look externally for candidates to fill advanced roles?
And since the crowd is kind of focused on AMTs and maintainers, I'm going to say we promote within. We hire hundreds of entry-level folks, me being one of them. I mean, I was the guy fresh out of the military that I just crossed my fingers that I could survive 6 months without being run down the road. You know, 21 and change years later, here I am, director of maintenance. So that should tell you that with dedication, hard work, and time, you can go somewhere, right? We look in our organization. We have vice presidents, our president, director of fleet management, fleet managers, quality control managers. Almost every one of them have come up from the entry level ground floor, so to speak.
Okay, you probably see, since you're hiring for the field, you probably see quite a number of resumes come in. What should an applicant do to make themselves a better candidate when applying for to work at Columbia?
Okay, that's a great question. I do see mountains of resumes. Okay, and we'll just start right at the top. All right, I may or may not be talking about real world experience here, but first of all, make sure your contact information is correct. All right, because you know phone numbers change. You know, so you're living with your mom, you're not living with your mom. If you put a phone number on there, the expectation is someone will be at the other end to answer it. Secondly, if you have one of those emails that you made up in high school that's probably not so cool anymore, get that cleaned up too, because it could have a reflection on, you know, who you want in your organization. Certificates. If you have, you know, the FAA, a driver's license, airframe power plant, you know, maybe an FCC certificate. If it's applicable, put it on there. If you got something from the basket weaving school, I don't need to know that, okay? Applicable experience. Now, I'll split this into two bits. Those that have experience and those that don't have experience. If you're fresh out of A&P school and you just have your certificate, I don't expect you to have 5 years of Bell 205 experience, of course not. But what I will say is that, say that you were very successful in the power plant course, or you know love sheet metal, you know really passionate about avionics, have some extensive wrench turning experience on something else. I mean, although it may be an international harvester, but you know about tool usage and you know what it feels like to bust your knuckles on something. You know, I want to know that you can turn a wrench. Okay, so that's for those folks that don't have experience. For the folks that do have experience, particularly military folks, get down to the nuts and bolts of things, okay? I want to know, again, that I'm hiring a wrench turner. I don't want to hire a first sergeant to be a first sergeant. I want to hire someone that has talked to me about track and balance, rigging, component changes, a little bit of sheet metal, a little bit of electrical stuff. I mean, put something in there. You have a certificate apparently that says you can do everything. So don't just keep it narrow focused on something that I don't need. I'm a veteran. We can talk about all that other veteran stuff down at the VFW. Don't need to know about your weapons qualifications. Don't need to know about your night vision goggle flight hours. Don't need to know your PT scores. Okay, we can talk about that later. I want, again, a wrench turner. It's okay to put on there. It's perfectly fine to put on there that you're an honorably discharged military veteran. Perfect. What else on my notes on my resume? Oh, here's a great one. If I ask you during an interview where you'd like to see yourself in 5 years, I would hope that you choose your answer wisely, because that probably could impact your employment. If you say that you want to go back to school and become a brain surgeon in 5 years, I'm not quite sure I'll invest the time in you. But if you say, hey, I want to be here, and I want to be a crew chief, and I want to work my way up here and do these great things, I like that answer. It'll go far. Okay.
Wow. I hope people will watch this recording, rewind, take notes, rewind, take notes, rewind, take notes. I think you just gave, again, some great information for people who might be looking for employment with Columbia Helicopters.
Okay, can I give you 5 more things?
Sure, go for
I'm
it.
sorry, Dan, I don't want to hijack, but I'm pretty passionate about this, okay?
Apparently, yes. No, I appreciate it. I mean, that's the
For that
goal of
interview,
this.
right? There's about 5 things we look for, core attributes of a person, okay? First and foremost is safety. Everything we do at Columbia Helicopters and anywhere else in this industry is the cornerstone is safety. Don't get out of bed if that's not your cornerstone, okay? So safety. Next thing is attitude. We work in small teams in close proximity in some faraway places under some atrocious conditions. If you can't keep a good attitude, it's going to be difficult for you to get in and meld with that team and be effective on that team. Thirdly is teamwork. Like I just said, we're around the world, we're doing amazing things, and we're doing it in a very tight-knit environment, tight teamwork. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Fourth, initiative. If you don't know what that is, don't apply here, okay? Not trying to be rude, but I'm telling you, we want self-starters. We want people that are on their toes, leaning forward, looking for the next thing to do, okay? And kind of going with that, when you're not leaning forward, looking for the next thing to do, don't be on your cell phone. Put that over there. And lastly, since these are helicopters and not fixed wing, flexibility is the name of the game. You may think that you're doing a something here in this helipad today. The Forest Service or our customer says, no, wait, pack up, we're going to New Mexico. Sorry, plans change, pack your stuff. On the road, away we go, right? So you know how this business is.
Okay, Matt, no, I certainly appreciate that. I think you've actually answered all the questions I have. So what I'd like to do now is go ahead and have Rick and Ted and Kathy bring their cameras back up, and we'll get into some of the general questions. There we go, got everybody in. Before we get started on the questions, let's start with Rick. Rick, did you have anything you'd like to add after hearing the other presentations? Anything you'd like to bring up?
Nothing to add. I agree with what, especially the 5 items that gentleman from Columbia just added. That's perfect. That's right on.
Okay. Kathy or Ted, did you guys have anything you wanted to add before we get into the questions?
No, I mean, I agree with Matt. I like the initiative part, right? I didn't say that when I was on there, but that's a really important part. And I solely agree with the cell phone statement also. I deal with that too much myself.
So Matt, the only thing I would add to your list to make it 6 as well, not everyone reads them. If you want to write a cover letter and keep it short, but write a cover letter, it introduces you. In addition, tells you why you want this job. Some people on the recruiting side don't read them anymore, but many of us do. And so
True.
you can then explain gaps in your resume. People have been affected by COVID. And you can explain why you're interested in this industry and why you want to be in helicopters. And you can show your passion that way through a cover letter. But other than that,
Awesome
Matt,
point.
that's a great list.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will say the cover letter, I mean, for me, 1 paragraph is something awesome, it doesn't need to be a whole page.
Doesn't have to be doesn't, but has to show that you're passionate about what you want to do and then explains yourself.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with some of the list of questions. Michael Bernier, I believe is how I'm pronouncing it. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. How can you set yourself up to be more marketable as a direct hire into management position as opposed to an entry-level A&P position? Matt, let's start with you first. Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead. You started to answer.
Sorry, Dan, I started to answer. You'd need experience first, and we do hire from within, but there's other areas in our organization where we hire people who can move up into management, such as the our production control organization, our process engineering organization, all those groups who are in manufacturing can eventually move up into manufacturing or into management positions. Supply chain is a good area. Production scheduling is an area. If you don't want to be in maintenance first, but you still have to start somewhere. My mother used to say you can't be the CEO right out of college or high school or trade school. So hope that answers the question from our side, Dan.
No, I appreciate that, Kathy. I'd like to welcome Jessica Calzada from Columbia Helicopters, who's joining us. She had originally hoped to be with us through the beginning, but got called away to an unscheduled meeting. Jessica, welcome to our webinar. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Matt has been doing an admirable job of talking about what he looks for in employees and explaining the work that Columbia does and the roles that the mechanics have to your facility or your program. So I do appreciate that. The question we were just asking, and Matt or Jessica, maybe you'd like to answer as well. How do you set yourself up to be more marketable as a direct hire into management positions? Does Columbia take people like that?
Did you say into management positions?
Yes, or supervisory role as opposed to an entry level with an AP.
Yep. So the reason I think our company is more desirable in that area is because we try to grow from within. So when we hire AP mechanics, they kind of start at the bottom and work their way up. So our lead supervisors, managers have already been there, done that, right? Because then they become better mentors. They understand what they're, the business, they understand what they're working on, especially in our shops. I don't know if Matt talked a lot about that, but on our back shops, we have an engine shop, we have a hydraulic shop, we have a drive and rotor shop, we have a hangar. So all of those shops find opportunities for people coming into the organization because not only do we fly our own aircraft, we maintain it.
Okay. Matt, did you have anything to add there?
I would say at the aircraft level, much like Kathy mentioned, it's kind of based on experience. Now, just in the broad helicopter industry sense, because of Columbia's very, very unique platform, I can't hire a 10-year S61 mechanic from some other competitor and expect them to drop right into a management position at Columbia. Another S61 operator may do that, but Columbia does not in that aspect. But like I said, and like Jessica said, internal growth and whatnot is incredible here, incredible. And again, this is for me at the aircraft level. Now, if you were a quality manager of an S61 operator, maybe there's a position in our quality management or department that would suit you. But it's at the aircraft and wrench turner level, because of our unique platforms, there's just not a lot of folks out there that have the desired experience and management skills we need.
Okay. Rick, I've got a question. I'll start with you this time. This is from Tom Allen, one of our viewers. What is the challenge for aircraft mechanics to transition to helicopters?
Oh, I don't think it's really there's a challenge. It's like anything. If you know the basics and you've learned the basics, you're going to have the same type of activity you're going to do on a fixed wing. Obviously, there's a little more dynamics going on in a helicopter than in a fixed wing. But if we follow the maintenance manual, if you follow the procedures, if you have your basics down for general maintenance, you're going to be just fine. You shouldn't have you have to learn like any platform, you're going to have to learn the platform. Going from a recip engine to a turbine engine, you have to understand the dynamics and how it works differently than a recip engine. But you follow the manual, your how to proceed with maintenance, you'll be fine.
Columbia or MD, do you have anything to add on that?
I'll jump in for a minute. I started my career in fixed wing in the United States Air Force, right? And then I got the opportunity to work at Learjet down in Tucson before I joined Hughes Helicopters. I started working with Rotorcraft. So it was like Mr. Cobbold said, it's all similar you just got, like you said, more dynamic. I thought it was, you know, I started to learn some of the acronyms, you know, tail rotor versus thrust reverser, you know, those kind of things. But it wasn't a hard transition. I mean, you still dealt with the same, you know, the same characteristics you're looking for. And back to like what Matt said, you know, it's always safety first. So you're, you know, whether you're around something that's a rotary wing or a fixed wing, you're still safety. So
I could add, Dan, that we've had some very successful transitions. Some of our field crew chiefs and field managers came from the fixed wing community, whether it be military or commercial. And again, it's all about those core 5 attributes and you know, following the processes and the steps and the ICA and doing the good work. So certainly.
right.
Okay, do appreciate that. Let's start, Matt, you just answered the last one. Let's start with you on this one then. This is from Jeff Gaines, and this is probably going to be different for each company, so I'll want to get input from each of you. Does a mechanic right out of school need to bring their own tool set?
You know, I would always encourage a mechanic to have their own tools, but I can tell you in certain environments, and especially bigger companies, in working internationally and transferring back and forth across the globe, sometimes it's absolutely easier for an organization to provide the tools. And plus that, with complex helicopters, there's so many tools in your toolkit that are specific to a Boeing Vertol or a commercial 234 or this or that. So, you know, you're never going to have a case where everybody has everything. So in our environment, that's almost the least of our worries. I would be a little concerned if a guy said, "Nah, I don't have a number 2 Phillips. I'm sorry." Be like, I'm not quite sure here. But I wouldn't lose sleep over getting your, you know, 48-inch snap-on rollaway. We don't do that here.
Okay, Ted, I heard you laughing. Ted, what are your thoughts for MD? Do people need their own tools?
I have both. Okay, so tool control is very important in our environment, right? Because you can't leave nothing behind when you got an operational aircraft, right? So we supply a good part of the tools. They're marked, they're checked at the beginning of each shift to make sure they're all there, right? Normal business. But I do have a small number of people in my organization that prefer to have their own tools, prefer to work out of their own toolbox. They have to follow the same rules. They're marked, they're accounted for. Beginning the shift, end the shift, right? And a lot of like our structures guys have got some unique things they've made over the years that you can't buy, and they share that information, and we get some of those tools made for some of our other structures guys that, you know, they share that information between each other. So I've got a mixture. We bring them in. They don't have to have any tools. We supply most of them. So.
Okay, Rick, how about for your company? Are tools required?
No, actually, as Matt said, the unique tools we provide, calibrated tools we provide, we track. We actually tell new hires that we don't want them. I mean, again, Matt said it, they have their standard screwdriver set and wrench set, whatever, but we encourage them to actually not buy until they figure out what they need. You know, it's just to go out and get a bunch of tools and show up with the toolbox and say that's my, you know, status right there is not what we want. We want you to learn what you need and to invest in what's going to be valuable to you. And meanwhile, we have just about everything you need. So don't worry about going out and getting tools.
All 3 are great answers. Do appreciate it. This one looks like it could be open for everybody as well. From Jose Javier Diaz Gonzalez Ocampo. I'm an aeronautical engineering student and I would love to work in the helicopter maintenance field. Are there any job opportunities in the maintenance department for engineers? Let's start with MD for that one.
Well, as I said before, we have process engineers, we have completion engineers, engineers who check out the drawings that when we're completing an aircraft. So we do have engineers, and then we have a whole engineering staff within our organization that does anything from, like I said, R&D to repair, MRB repair on anything that has to be done with the FAA, plus doing our regular, like I said, completions of an aircraft. So yes, there are opportunities for engineers in our organization. Now, they don't usually go to the maintenance side or the manufacturing side first, unless they're a manufacturing engineer, or manufacturing specialist. But we actually we had one person who graduated from as an engineer, and then we had a structures program. We were doing structures training when the Phoenix area just had no structures. Rick, you probably know, with last couple of years, there have been no structures. You can't hire them anywhere, personnel. So we started our own training program, and we had an engineer go through that. And then we moved him to become an engineer, and I believe he went back out to the floor, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He went back out to the floor. So we've had one opportunity that I can think of off the top of my head where we actually had an engineer in the maintenance area. Then he came inside and worked as an engineer, and then he went back out into the maintenance side. He really wanted to be hands-on on the aircraft instead of just being engineering. So hope that answers that.
Yeah, he missed the aircraft. That's what happened. He missed the aircraft, so he came back into the organization, and just because of that, he just didn't like sitting in front of a computer modeling things. He preferred to touch and grind and trim and rivet and drill holes. And
They talk about when aviation gets into your blood, and apparently that must have occurred there.
yes, it did.
Rick, what about for you? Any room for an engineer in your facility?
Yeah, we use engineering a lot, but we usually contract it out. We use DERs, so when we have something, we'll do preliminary designs, then we'll give it our DERs, let them help us to formalize it, get into an approval process, and then get it approved and implement.
Okay, and Jessica or Matt, how about for Columbia?
So we definitely hire engineers. We have a lot like MD, we have a whole engineering department. So we have manufacturing engineers, electrical engineers, structural engineers, and they work closely on the floor. I mean, when we're trying to put an aircraft together or take it apart or try to come up with something new that, is a new structure on the aircraft or a new component on the aircraft, the engineers are always on the floor. You always see them in the hangar, you see them in the shops. They're part of our testing, they're part of our everyday. So, they don't just get to sit up in their desks and create models. They need to come down and work with the mechanics and work with the shop managers to kind of see what's going on day to day. So we definitely do hire engineers.
Okay, next question. I'm going to paraphrase it just a little bit from Luis Vasquez. Is military training equivalent to civilian specialized training? And Matt, I think you'd started to, or you had talked a little bit about that. Do you mind elaborating there?
I think if I was comparing them to, side by side, I'd probably need more information to give you an accurate answer. I can tell you absolutely the military, because of the big budget, they get to some fascinating training, high technology, the latest tooling and testing equipment. That's awesome. That's great stuff. But I wouldn't say that I would get a better technician from the military as opposed to a civilian organization or training center either. So I can say, I mean, again, it takes all of us to, a whole different background, all different backgrounds to make it work. And I can't say one is better than the other. Maybe MD or someone else has some more experience with that.
I was just going to ask MD, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if somebody comes to us that's just come in from the field, that's working on our helicopter, that's out, supporting like in Afghan and other locations, it's definitely a foot in the door, right? Because he knows the ship. But again, back to like Matt said, it's hard to say it's one or the other. But it's definitely it definitely helps if they got background on our platform, when they come in. So.
And Rick, how about for you?
We don't see a whole lot. What we have seen, I will say, usually in the military, they're very specialized in one area, and they're used to that, and they're very good at that area. We need, at our company, need to see something more broad. Doesn't mean we can't bring them on and get in there, but they usually come out with a very specialized technique that they use in whatever skill that they were trained in.
That makes sense. Let's see, let's start with MD on this question. What non-salaried benefits can I expect from a helicopter manufacturer or operator? We'll get to Columbia and we'll get to Rick in a minute. Things like maybe flexible schedule, vacation, education, travel,
So we have PTO. We have a whole suite of benefits: medical, dental, vision. And our benefits are the same whether you're a salaried non-exempt or you're an executive. We don't differentiate. Everyone has the same benefits. So we have a 401k plan. We have a plethora of benefits that are partially company paid for, fully company paid for, or employee paid that we offer. Really good PTO, a beautiful work location, and we travel is really not, we're not an airline, so we don't have that benefit, that flight benefit, like I said, those are our standard benefits. We also have a great place to work. So that is, and as Ted said, we are a family environment. It's small enough to be like a family, and we're all located, unless you're overseas, we're all located within a 2.5 mile radius of one another. So, except for the, because of COVID, are working from home, and then they're in their homes, but they're always connected.
Right.
This is an extraordinary year, and we hope that it will finish up soon. But yeah, I think we're all experiencing that. Jessica, what about for Columbia?
Yeah, so I think Columbia has a very generous benefit package for their mechanics. So we have the standard medical, dental, vision, that the company pays the majority of that. So it's very low cost to the employee out of pocket. We also have an HSA and flexible spending. In addition to that, all of our employees get to participate in our cash profit sharing program. So if the company does well, every employee working gets to participate in that at the end of the year. And then in addition to the cash profit sharing, we have a non-traditional 401k plan. So it has a 401k match and then a 401k contribution. So those are really nice. And then when it comes to vacation and PTO, you know, all of our field employees work a 2 on, 2 off schedule. Our overseas people typically work a 28 on, 28 off, with the exception of COVID and this year. They've had quite varying schedules. And then for, you know, everybody else at the Aurora location, they're on a vacation and sick accrual process. But I usually typically don't get any complaints as people are exiting about the benefits. It's one of the things they like, and the people, right? Everybody comes to Columbia to work for the people, their team.
And I offer them plenty of travel when they come see me.
Paid exotic travel to work on aircraft, yes.
That's right.
Rick, do you have anything you'd like to add for that segment?
No, we have a pretty standard competitive medical package, and we don't have a 401. Our size company generally do not have 401s, but everything else is pretty standard.
Okay. Let's see, we've got a question from Michael Wigg, and I think everybody has touched on avionics a little bit. What can you do to make an avionic, what can they do to make an avionic mechanic resume stand out? Rick, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. You know, avionics, the technology has changed quite a bit. Probably 15, 20 years ago, we were opening up radios, Honeywell radios, repairing them, putting diodes, changing things, fixing them, putting them back in the aircraft. All of that's gone. Primarily Garmin, there's a few others. Everything goes back to the factory now for repairs. So it's really not avionic repairs anymore. It's more wiring, installs and programming, coordinating the equipment to work with each other. So it's a different avionics field than it was 20 years ago. But wiring is very important. Understanding how systems work, again, how to interconnect, staying up with the technology is pretty critical. It changes very fast. But it's the repair, the avionics repair stuff is pretty much gone, in my opinion.
So Dan, we have to drop off in just a minute, but as we're a little bit past time. But what we look for in avionics is up-to-date training and then the FCC license, right?
Yep.
Right.
And then Rick's right, it's changed a lot. It's a lot of it's just R&R, send it out, get it fixed. MD has this in the last 18 months, has brought all their electrical harnesses in-house so that we now control our own destiny, and we build our own harnesses in the shop now. Overbraiding, all that kind of stuff, but a lot of the avionics, like Rick said, it's not the same as sitting down, taking it out, changing a board, or it's all circuitry now that we don't deal with that much.
Okay, well, I've got just a couple more questions to before I wrap up. So, but Kathy, Ted, if you do need to leave, I do appreciate it. Matt, Jessica, do either one want to answer the question about the avionics resume?
So when we're looking at resumes for us, right, we're looking for, solid background on the electrical side, the wire harness side. We're still a little bit old fashioned that we actually do have benches that the employees work at. So we're looking for people who actually sat at a bench and did some work, taking those radios apart, taking the different components that get installed in the aircraft. So I always tease and I say the one shop that I could never work in Columbia because I'd get fired is avionics. So when they're building out those wire harnesses and they're labeling everything, the attention to detail is amazing. So, when we're looking for candidates, a lot of times we're looking for the proper training, the aptitude, the willingness to learn. So that's, when we're looking at resumes, that's what we're looking for.
I could add to that, Columbia is in a very unique position where it does have some old steam gauges. So an applicant's resume that can talk about soldering and fixing and circuit board stuff, that along with new modern cutting edge tooling and glass panels, that would appear to be very, very attractive, very attractive. That's kind of for back shop positions. If on occasion we have field avionics folks that travel and are embedded with our teams in Papua New Guinea, Afghanistan, those are the folks that are working on electrical gremlins each and every night, troubleshooting, fault isolation stuff. If that's your strong spot, definitely get that put into the resume as opposed to bench work versus airframe work.
Okay, I've got two more. One is the wrap up. This one is for Matt from Jeff Gaines. When you say you're relocating to, say, Chile or Alaska, is that for a short time period while you're away, or a total family relocation?
We don't relocate families. Our folks work on rotation schedules from Phoenix or Portland or Spokane or Missoula or Tampa, and they just go to their local airports and they go back and forth to our local where the aircraft may be, whether that's Afghanistan, Papua New Guinea, Chile, Ecuador. So that's what a rotation schedule is. We don't relocate families. We don't get jobs that last that long. I don't think we've ever done that. But there are times when we've had machines in Papua New Guinea for 20 years, and we've had guys that fly from LAX to Sydney to Papua New Guinea for 20 years every 28 days. That's just what we do. That's what the magic of the helicopter. It can go anywhere. It can do anything.
Okay, well, appreciate that. The last question I'm going to ask both of you. What's the one thing you'd like viewers to take away from this webinar today? Rick, let's go and start with you on that one, please.
Yeah, primarily, especially no matter what you do, is know what it is, get some experience at it, decide if you really like it. You have to have a passion to be in the business. If you have the passion, you're going to meet, like we talked about, the 5 objectives and everything else. But experiment with it, learn it, be around it. I tell guys, go out to the airport, hang out at the airports and hang around with product. Doesn't matter if it's fixed wing, helicopter, whatever, and decide if you like it. And if you really like it and you get enthused about it, it's going to take you places that, whether it's management or right there on the floor working all your life, there's guys that love doing that. They wouldn't do anything other than turn a wrench. So that's primarily what you got to do. You just got to make sure it's something you want to do, you like it, and you want to stay with it.
Good.
Excellent advice.
I think Rick said it best right there is find your passion and go after it. Don't let someone else tell you can't do it. Don't be afraid to test the waters. Helicopters can sometimes be giant and intimidating, but make no mistake about it, every one of us started somewhere. and we built on our experience and our teams and stuff like that. And it's an amazing and absolutely rewarding career in aviation maintenance is the rotary wing industry. I mean, I think you can all tell I'm pretty damn passionate about it. I love helicopters. I think of them when I'm sleeping. I love them.
Jessica, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so I would just say, you know, as an AP mechanic or a mechanic in general in aviation, there's tons of opportunity for you and there's tons of places to start, right? So I wasn't on the phone call at the beginning, but Columbia has their own apprenticeship program. We help our mechanics earn their A&P if that's what they want to go after, but you can also go to school and get an A&P. There's lots of ways for you to get it. So, you know, as Rick and Matt both said, if the passion's there's lots of avenues to get you what you need to be successful. So, you know, if somebody tells you no, don't stop there because there's lots of other places to look when somebody says no. So just, you know, find something that you enjoy and go after it.
Okay, Jessica, Matt, Rick, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Ted and Kathy, I hope you find this message after the fact, but all of you, your assistance to our industry is deeply appreciated. We know that people don't always have all the information they want when they're getting ready to approach a new career or you know, getting ready to leave school. And advice like this is going to be really valuable. So I am grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please enjoy your evenings.
Thank you, Big Dan. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you too.
I'll wrap up my my housekeeping duties. Thank you so much. You can go ahead and turn your cameras off.
Bye.
So if anybody wants more information about these companies, you might be wondering where to find them. I'm going to leave this up on the screen for just a second. If you have your cameras, grab a screen capture, hit print screen, something like that. Columbia Helicopters, callheli.com, Flight Trails, flighttrails.info, and of course, mdhelicopters.com. As we mentioned, MD Helicopters and Columbia Helicopters both have employment sections on their website with job listings. Flight Trails, if you are interested, look for the email address and contact them directly. Save the date coming up next. Next week, on March 4th, we have an intriguing subject, mitigating high-risk operations. We have Powderbird, a helicopter operator out of Utah that was starting out as traditional heli-skiing operation, and they are now helping to mitigate avalanches, avalanche danger there in the Utah area for ski resorts. And so they're actually dropping high explosives from their aircraft. And obviously they're doing it safely. So that's something we're really looking forward to hearing more about. March 11th, this is tentative. We believe we have this lined up, but reducing external pressures. Finish the mission at all costs? Well, maybe not always. Let's stop and think about what the costs could be and how to mitigate those pressures. And on March 18th, this is going to be entertaining a lawyer's view of your insurance policy. I think that's going to be primarily for operators, but it's going to be something that's going to be, I think, very, very interesting. Coming up next, we do have a follow-on questionnaire that will come to you very shortly. We do ask that you take a few minutes to respond. We try to use these webinars to meet the needs of our audience. We do pay attention to them. We do follow the subjects. And so please let us know what you think about the webinars and what we could do better, more of, less of, things like that. Obviously, if you have any suggestions for HAI in general, what can we do better for you? What can we do better for the industry? Are these webinars helping? Let us know your general thoughts. The best way to do that is to use the president@rotor.org email address. Send us your challenges. Send us your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Jim Viola does see every one of those emails. He does assign them to staff members for tasking. And so they are not just going to sit and go away. We do appreciate all of your input. That said, this is the conclusion of the webinar for today. We do appreciate you took the time to join us. Until next week, we ask that you be safe, you fly safe, and we'll see you next week.